On today's show, is LeBron Watch 3.0 a thing? Are we doing that? Yeah, we have to talk about that. Plus, it's a week into the offseason. How have the Cavs fared so well? Spencer Davies joins me on today's edition of Locked on Cavs.
You are Locked on Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? My name is Danny Cunningham. You might know me from my time covering the Cleveland Cavaliers, places like my Substack, The Inside Shot, Cleveland Magazine, 92.3 The Fan, and a number of other stops along the way. I want to say thank you to you for making Locked on Cavs your first listen today and every day. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, or anywhere else. Make sure you drop us a 5-star rating, leave us a nice review, and of course, be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked on Cavs. Make sure you're subscribed and make sure a friend is subscribed as well. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button as we get started here. And of course, the show, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode brought to you by FanDuel, because right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That is $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Spencer, this past weekend, I was at a wedding. Two of my friends from college were wed on Friday night. And we were it was in Canton, Ohio, the Hall of Fame city. So, of course, my fiance and I had a hotel for the night. We were just planning on staying in Canton. And we get about halfway from Cleveland, where we live, to Canton. And she is glued to Twitter because there's some stuff going on. Well, what comes out on Friday on Twitter is a photo of one LeBron James at the Cavs practice facility. And she looks at me and she goes, "Are we going to have to leave this wedding if something happens with LeBron and the Cavs tonight?" And of course, nothing happened other than LeBron actually going out there and trying to shut stuff down on Twitter, which I don't know if that means anything at all. I don't know if any of this means anything, but it is something that we do have to talk about. So just from a 30,000-foot view, what do you make, Spencer, of the fact that we are having a LeBron Watch 3.0 conversation in the year 2025?
Nobody plays the game better than LeBron James. And I'm not talking about on the basketball court. I'm talking about from a leverage standpoint and putting pressure on an organization that in his mind probably doesn't have enough right now to compete for a championship. And another thing too, I think when LeBron James is not the alpha of a team, he takes it a certain way. And it's a little bit different nowadays because he's 41 years old. Luka Doncic is there. He might be second fiddle, and he's not used to that position. So there just might be a little bit of disdain. I don't think that you can be gaslit into telling me that none of this matters. It's not about coming to Cleveland. It's not about being a part of the Cavs organization. But this guy's known what he's done for his entire career, okay? The trail of breadcrumbs started, I think, on Thursday. He's over on the golf course over at Portage.
That was Wednesday. He was playing on Wednesday. And how do I know this, Spencer? Because as I covered in the podcast last week, and I believe I texted you, I have a family member who is a member at that country club. And said family member asked me to golf Wednesday at 8:20. And at 8:05, I get a text from this family member that says, "Danny, you are not going to believe this. LeBron James is on the first tee in the group ahead of me right now." So I am very familiar. He has played that country club multiple times. And I have gotten to the point to where I have let my thinking for this go. Not, if LeBron does get bought out and signs with the Cavs, what does that mean? What does the roster look like? What my mind has gone to is if LeBron gets bought out and signs with the Cavs, maybe he will join Portage Country Club and I will be playing with my family member and the member guest in a match against LeBron and J.R. Smith. That's where my mind has gone.
Or, the hat here. That also would make a lot of sense, just being in Akron. But the trail of breadcrumbs that he always leaves is fascinating to me. And it's very subtle, but it's not subtle because everybody tracks this guy's Instagram, his Twitter. all these people telling you that you don't have a life because you're looking at these signs and you're saying he knows exactly what he's doing, but they're going to gaslight you and tell you it doesn't mean anything. He's just minding his own business. He's living his life. Okay, so you start with the welcome home hat at Portage. And then you go on the comment on Allie Clifton's Instagram where she's wearing, along with her significant other, a LeBron James Cavs jersey on the lake. And he says proper attire with a winky face. And then you go as far as to go on 4th of July where Denver Jones, which congratulations to Denver Jones, by the way, a member of the Cavs Summer League roster, and he gets the first picture with LeBron, and they are inside Cleveland Clinic courts with a Cavs logo showing. And I think that was the kicker for me because you allowed yourself to be in the spotlight in another organization's gym, being under contract with a different team. I think that is the chef's kiss, but I also think that was the point where I was like, all right, there's nothing to any kind of rumor about him being in the wine and gold. He is just putting on that public pressure. And you can say, yeah, he works out at the Cavs facility every single summer. But I don't remember the last time we saw pictures of it. And I also don't want to be gaslit into this because of the trail, because of how many things have been done to this point. And I think a lot of Lakers fans are a little bit insecure because they see us talking about it and they're like, it means nothing, it means nothing, it means nothing. And yeah, in terms of moving teams or coming to Cleveland, it means nothing. But the pressure that he's putting on Rob Pelinka and their organization to try and make moves so that they're in position to compete in a very loaded West, I think that has a lot of what to do with what he's been posting.
And we have seen this playbook, I think, a number of different times from LeBron James. We've seen it but in different ways. And Spencer, I was having this conversation with somebody, like, different guys have different ways of making things uncomfortable when they're unhappy. Like, for instance, Jimmy Butler. He is just going to be a jerk. When he's unhappy somewhere, he's going to be the worst person in the world to be around. I don't think that is LeBron's DNA. That's not how LeBron is built. What LeBron is going to do, and I don't even know if this is calling, like, I don't know if we can even call this cryptic at this point because I'm not sure. I think we are past that point. But he's going to do these subtle things. I mean, remember the subtweets of Kevin Love. Remember how unhappy he was when the Cavs were 19-20 in January back in 2015 when Dion Waiters was still on the roster, kind of pressuring the Cavs into making some moves. Of course, they were able to turn what they had into Iman Shumpert and J.R. Smith and Timofey Mozgov, and those were really good moves for them. And then seeing the pressure or how unhappy parts of that 2017-2018 season were before the Cavs made just a massive trade at the trade deadline to completely flip the roster over. We are seeing this now, maybe for the first time, maybe the second time, actually, I think, because I do think there was one other thing where I believe it was when the All-Star game was here in Cleveland, that he gave a quote. It might've been to Joe Varden of The Athletic, that he could see himself finishing his career in Cleveland. And that was a pressure play on the Lakers. And we have seen him do this, but I think the fact that he's doing this now, opted into his contract. Rich Paul gave the quotes to ESPN that he did. I think, one, this is a big pressure play, but I don't know how this can pay off, right? Like, I look at what you mentioned about the Lakers. Like, I do not view them as a contender out West. The Western Conference is far too good. Now, Luka is, I think, one of the best players in the Western Conference, not the best, but one of them. LeBron is still an all-NBA caliber player, but I don't look at them as a team that says, yes, they can get significantly better. Like, I do think that this is a pressure play, but I ultimately don't look at this and say, yeah, LeBron's probably going to get bought out, which might be the thing that he wants, but I don't know that that's going to happen.
Get bought out after getting paid your 52 M's would be an insane masterclass from LeBron. But why in the world would the Lakers do that? And that's my question to a lot of the people that are like, oh, he'll just come over to Cleveland after he's a free agent. And I'm just like, he's not a free agent. He's probably going to be really hard to trade for. Also, I think people saw the wave and stretch of Damian Lillard, and now that's the standard. and
they're not going to stretch him. They're not going to wave and stretch him. I would be very surprised if they buy him out. Like my firm
that's my
expectation.
thing too.
And so I actually think what this matters for, my expectation is LeBron James will be playing for the Lakers this year. But LeBron James, we know this for certain. LeBron James will be an unrestricted free agent next year.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the Cavs are going to be a very expensive team next year. They're not going to be a team that's operating in cap space. We know those things to be true. But if there is a LeBron and the Cavs reunion, and of course there is a long time and there's a lot of basketball to be played between now and then. But if this were to happen, I just wonder what the conversations that we are going to be having 365 days from right now about this subject are.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I'm not sure. I think you obviously welcome him with open arms, depending on what the contract would be. And if you're able to offer the contract that he wants, that's another thing that you're thinking about. But I wanted to get your thoughts on this too, because I've been asked about it all week in terms of when this all started, right? He opts in, and then the Cavs stuff starts coming to mind before he even posts anything. Like, this has been a conversation for a week and a half, 2 weeks, and people talking about LeBron maybe requesting a trade or subtly hinting at whatever, the subliminal message king, he's truly an artist. But what I'm in the mindset of, I would not do this, but I want to know what you would think. Would you go through all the maneuvering you have to go through with the Cavs and trade away 4 to 5 players to get LeBron James, 41 years old, on a 1-year contract, potentially in his last season in the NBA? Would you do that in order to push this team to that top of the echelon, where I think they already kind of are anyway?
Right.
But this is a conversation that's been all over Cleveland right now. And to me, it's just not the same as it was before. I think the ideal LeBron might be better than what LeBron is now. And this could come back and bite me in the ass so bad. But I am in the mindset of the allure is not the same to me. And Cavs have a good thing going right now. And why mess with it?
For the most part, I agree with that. Now, like, if he gets bought out, I think it's a different story.
Yes.
I would not trade, if I am Kobe Altman, I would not trade what the Cavs would have to trade in order to get LeBron. And I wouldn't do it for a couple of reasons. One, LeBron is going to be 41 in December, and he was an all-NBA caliber player last year. Is he going to be that this year? I don't know. Is he going to play after this year? I don't know. But I know you can't trade, primarily for me, you can't trade Darius Garland for a guy who might be playing in his last year and you don't know what he's going to be. Like, that to me is the sticking point here. Like, would I be fine if they traded Jarrett Allen or DeAndre Hunter or Max Strus? Sure. But I would not trade a 25-year-old two-time All-Star in order to trade for a 41-year-old who is the greatest player in NBA history, in my opinion. But I just don't think that is worth it. The other thing too, Spencer, and I think I touched upon this on one of the episodes I did last week, but look at what the Boston Celtics are doing right now. They're taking a gap year, and part of it is because Jason Tatum tore his Achilles. And that was not a preventable thing. And I think they were going to take a gap year anyways. They were going to have to trade guys like, I think the fact that the Celtics were going to trade Drew Holiday was the worst kept secret in the NBA for the last several months. But they are now, because they are making these trades, going to, at a certain point, maybe it'll be next season, maybe it'll be 2 seasons from now, they're going to have a reimagined team around Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, and maybe Derek White too. The Cavs, at a certain point, are going to have to break up their score for financial reasons. They're not going to, like Jarrett Allen, I would bet a lot of money that Jarrett Allen does not finish the contract extension that he signed last summer with the Cavs. I really think he will be traded at some point. I think there's a strong chance Darius Garland gets traded at some point. At a certain point, the Cavs are going to have to remake a core around Evan Mobley and maybe Donovan Mitchell, but I don't know about him, in order to find like a second championship window around Evan Mobley. If they were to trade what they need to trade for LeBron right now, that is not happening, because those assets are going to be gone. And what you get to show for them are a 41-year-old LeBron, and that might help you right now. We don't know because of his age, but 3, 4, 5 years down the road, when the Cavs have to look different and Evan Mobley is in his prime and should be somebody that is competing for MVPs, first team all NBAs. When you get to that point, if you don't have some of those assets that you're going to have to trade away in a couple of years, if you do not get a return on those, if your return is LeBron, you are going to have to trade Evan Mobley down the road. Like trading for LeBron, if that were the thing. You know that meme where it's like the one really small domino is like some minor event and then it's the big domino, right? Like trading for LeBron would ultimately be, I think, the first domino in having to eventually trade Evan Mobley. And that is not something that I think should happen.
No. And you're leaving your cupboard empty again.
Yes.
And that's a really tough thing to build a team again. You're right back to square one. You're at like 2018, 2019 season. You're at 2019, 2020 season. This is what your team becomes. And I just don't think taking a chance for that, all for 1 year to have a chance because the East might be a little bit up for the taking as compared to past years. I think it's bad business to do that. And I think it's not smart when you have a really, really good thing going and you're still probably going to be able to have pretty much the same team for the next couple years. Like, It's not just that it's over after this year. It depends on what happens. Like, I think they got to get to the finals. Do they have to win the finals? I don't think so. But if they get to the finals and say they lose 4-2 to the Thunder or something like that, then you're like, okay, yeah, we can do this. If you're out in the second round, then you're going to have ridiculous changes anyway. Something weird's going to happen that way. But if they're able to do that, get to the next step, which is the finals, and they put up a fight, then they'll probably bring back pretty much the same team again the next year.
I would imagine. And the team, Spencer, has changed from what they were last year to what they are now. So we're done talking about LeBron. We're going to talk about the actual things that have happened, like the actual moves that the Cavs have made and things that have actually happened this offseason next right here on Locked on Cavs. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green like I am, or high-stakes soccer action. Is the soccer high stakes right now? I have no idea because I really don't watch soccer, and right now baseball just makes me sad. We're recording this at 12:45 Sunday afternoon. I am going to assume that the Guardians lost again because that is all they know how to do at this point. But you can make even watching them lose fun with FanDuel, because if you're already following the action, why not make it a little bit more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned on the beach. I did actually, and again, recording this 12:45 Sunday afternoon. I went on FanDuel today, and I took an alternate strikeout line for Tarek Skubal, the starting pitcher for the Detroit Tigers, on Sunday against the Guardians. I bet him to have 12 or more strikeouts, because that is how little confidence that I have in the Cleveland Guardians right now. So maybe you're like me, and while I want them to win, I've got no faith. I might as well try and capitalize on that lack of faith. And if you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Again, just bet $5, get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. Thank you again for making Locked on Cavs your first listen today and every day. Like I said earlier, you can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, or anywhere else. Make sure to drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review, and of course, be a friend. Tell a friend about the show. Spencer, I don't believe you and I have had a podcast since the Cavs started making moves, but let's just recap everything that has been done in the last 10 days. The Cavs started things off by trading Isaac Okoro straight up for Lonzo Ball. No draft picks involved. They signed Sam Merrill to a new 4-year contract worth, I believe, $38 million, which is roughly $9.5 million per year. Ty Jerome left the team via free agency to sign with the Memphis Grizzlies on a 3-year deal worth $28 million, the final year being a player option, which I believe was certainly a smaller contract than I anticipated Ty getting. And then lastly, the Cavs came to terms with Larry Nance Jr. on a minimum contract for the next season. So just overall, what do you make of what the Cavs have done so far?
I just think there's a little bit of a difference in terms of the bench. Lonzo Ball's not going to be the scorer that Ty Jerome is, but he will be a ball mover. I think one of his most attractive characteristics is the way that he launches the ball up the floor after he gets a rebound. And it's almost akin to what like Kevin Love would do. Those kind of 3/4 court, move the ball up the floor. You saw a lot of it from Tyrese Halliburton this year. Like those types of passes. And also when he's catching the ball, it's not sticking. He's going to immediately get it to the next guy. I think there was something about after a catch, he was like in the 88th percentile in terms of like passing it, where like Ty Jerome, I think, was like in the 30s or something like that. They're just stylistically very different. But I think that you cannot, and I cannot emphasize this enough, you cannot replace Ty Jerome with one player. Not with this roster right now. So it's going to be by committee. You're going to have Lonzo Ball. You're going to have Craig Porter Jr. And you're going to have to figure out Jalen Tyson's role in all this too. So I feel like those guys might be able to try, and obviously Sam Merrill's a part of that too, but you cannot replace Ty Jerome and the way that he scored last year, putting pressure on the rim with all of those floaters and the transition 3-pointers, and just really, he's just the engine of that second unit. So that's not easily replaceable. I can't say it enough. I don't know if I agree with the strategy. I know that Kenny Atkinson loves Sam Merrill, and they clearly chose between the two, and he's going to get paid for it, and good for him. That's a great story. 60th pick overall, and then first pick in the G League draft in 2023, and all of a sudden now Sam is getting his money. So I'm very happy for Sam Merrill, and I think he's a good player. Defensively, Kenny loves him. I think Kenny also loves the fact that he brings that off-ball juice and attracts attention in the half court, and that was really what was the sticking point. And they wanted a little bit more defense on the perimeter. So that's the Ty Jerome move, and I'm sure we'll get to the next couple.
Well, the thing that there's a couple things that I just kind of want to touch on from what you said. I don't know that in terms of the scoring. I do know Lonzo Ball is not going to replace Ty Jerome's scoring output, right? Like that's not Lonzo's game. What I do think, and I agree it's going to have to be by committee, but there's, I think, a very important member of that committee that you did not mention, and that is Evan Mobley. I think that Evan's scoring is going to have to go up without Ty Jerome being there. And I think Lonzo Ball being on the roster and probably playing in some of those second units, right? Like we saw a lineup last year pretty frequently that had Ty, Evan, and Donovan in it. If you slide Lonzo Ball into that spot, I do think that is a lineup that can showcase Evan Mobley more, because I don't know that sticky is the right word, but there were times when I think Ty Jerome could get tunnel vision with the basketball in his hands, and Lonzo Ball is not a victim of that whatsoever. That never happens with him. So I do think that you look at this, okay, well, Lonzo is not going to take as many shots as Ty. He's probably not going to be as efficient either. Like I would not anticipate having the same shooting season that Ty had last year, but I do think some of those shots that Ty was taking that aren't going to Lonzo, so to speak, are going to Evan Mobley instead. And I think that could be a really good thing for the Cavs. And ultimately, what I look at as the Cavs strategy is they saw what Oklahoma City was able to do, and they saw what the Pacers could do. And the thing that I think those two teams had in common is they had very few players that were one-way guys, right? Like Tyrese Halliburton would get attacked defensively, but he's a 6'5" guard, and he's, I think he held up fine, certainly against the Cavs on that end of the floor. But the Cavs had Ty Jerome, who, for as good as he was offensively, he's never been a good defender. He had like this run of steals early in the season, and then teams figured out what he was doing, and you just never saw it again. But he got mercilessly hunted in the playoffs defensively. You look at bringing in Larry Nance Jr., who I think can play two ways. I think Lonzo Ball is a two-way player. So you lose Ty, who is a one-way player. Isaac Okoro, nobody was going to defend him ever in the playoffs. He has played in 5 postseason series, and not once has an opposing team defended him seriously in the postseason. So I do think that Cleveland's strategy so far in making their offseason moves has been, how do we stack as many guys that are positive contributors, both offensively and defensively, given the limited resources that the Cavs have to improve? And I think that they've done a great job of doing that.
So you can't get played off the floor on either end.
Yes.
So that was the
Lonzo
polar
Ball,
opposite right there. Yeah.
While Lonzo is not the shooter that Ty is, because of how much force he plays with the basketball in his hands, and how much playmaking he does for others, you can't ignore him offensively. Even if he's only going to shoot 37% from three, like he's somebody you can't ignore offensively. And defensively, he's a plus.
Most definitely. I think his IQ really with Lonzo is what speaks to me. But that's a really good point because, Isaac Okoro probably couldn't play most of the playoffs because he couldn't make shots, right? But he was amazing defensively. And then you look at the flip side with Ty Jerome. Offensively, this guy could give you 30 off the bench if you wanted to. But on the other end, if he's getting hunted mercilessly, is the way you put it, and got played out of a series against Indiana, then that's a really good point. They want guys that cannot just be targeted on either end. That makes a lot of sense to me, and I think you put that very, very nicely. The thing with Lonzo and Larry that is the elephant in the room here that we have not addressed is health and the amount of minutes they're going to play. So Lonzo, this was insane to me when I was looking up on Basketball Reference when they traded for him. He's played 70 games in the last 4 years, which is nuts. He actually hasn't played a single playoff game in his career too, by the way. And then with Larry Nance Jr., we know what Larry brings to the table. He's going to get you all the tip backs. He's going to get you all the tip ins. He's an improved three-point shooter, especially from the corner. Did a very good job in Atlanta and even in New Orleans. I think that he's got to be able to stay on the floor. That's the biggest thing with him. And he's only going to be playing probably 15 to 20 minutes a night, if I had to guess. Enough to buy you some time for an Evan Mobley, for, with Lonzo Ball, for a Darius Garland or a Donovan Mitchell. I'm sure we'll see a 3-guard lineup with those guys too, because Lonzo's big enough to hold his own on that end too. So I think that it's a decent trade-off. It is inherently a risk, though, because of their injury histories. So you take the good with the bad, and then you hope that this performance staff, which did an excellent job last year, Kenny Atkinson spoke so highly of that crew. You got to depend on them to make sure they're taking care of their bodies. You got to give them limitations on certain nights, on the back-to-backs, and you got to make sure that they come through healthy by the time that April rolls around, and then you're good to go to throw them out there and do their thing. And I think that's the biggest thing for me, is making sure that those two are healthy, because the most important thing that Kobe talked about was improving on the margins. And I think that was the goal. And I feel like in a vacuum, they've done that if those two can stay healthy. And they still have an open roster spot and a 2-way contract open too.
Yes, and I think there's one other thing that those two both bring to the table for Kenny Atkinson that'll allow him to be a little creative. So we're going to talk about that next right here on Locked on Cavs. So when I look at these moves too, it's not just that they're both 2-way guys, Spencer. It's that I think both of them provide Kenny Atkinson a new level of versatility and creativity that he maybe didn't have before as a coach. Because what's one of the biggest gripes that I think a lot of fans had, in particular with Sam Merrill, is that he would play a lot of small forward. And Sam, for as much as he fights defensively, when he's matched up with some of these bigger wings, like, it's just not a matchup you want him to be in. Like the lineup that would have him, Donovan Mitchell, and Ty Jerome, where you are playing 3 guards there, Sam is the best defender of that bunch. Where now a 3-guard lineup with Lonzo Ball, Sam Merrill, and Donovan Mitchell is much different, because Sam can guard his natural position because Lonzo can defend so many threes. And then with Larry, I look at it as a home run, because the Cavs have been searching for a third big, and finding a third big in their particular situation, I think, is really difficult, because the ideal third big is somebody that can play alongside either Jarrett Allen or Evan Mobley. And I think Larry is the rare guy that can, because of that shooting piece. Now, he's never been a great high volume 3-point shooter, but he has shot a respectable percentage since he left Cleveland in the summer of, I believe it was 2021. Since he left Cleveland, he's been a respectable 3-point shooter. So I do think that he can play 4 alongside Jarrett Allen, and he can play the 5 alongside Evan Mobley if need be. And I think that is a big boost for Kenny Atkinson, just in terms of lineup flexibility.
Swiss Army knife. And he's a guy that we know loves to play through the middle, does the dribble handoff thing. He gets to the middle and does that like little move, and You think about it now because he did not have a Sam Merrill to play with the last time he was here, or a Max Strus to play with. Those guys can accentuate his strengths in terms of that part of his game. So I agree with you. The fact that he can play the 5 or the 4 is very important. I think his playmaking piece to it is going to be big as well. And that's we can go down the list for all the backup bigs the Cavs have had. Like, we'll exclude Dean Wade from this because he clearly is, but like, I'm going and I'm thinking Robin Lopez, Damian Jones, Tristan. Am I missing
guys
anyone?
that you want not guys that you want in a playoff setting.
Right, exactly. But like those were the type of guys they were bringing in, and since they had to move Larry, they haven't had anything, and now they have it back, and they have it with a coach that has a different philosophy too. So I'm intrigued by it. I really am. But I don't see him getting more than 15 to 20 minutes a night, but they're going to be very impactful 15 to 20 minutes. And again, I think you have to have a program for him. You have to have a program for Lonzo to make sure they're getting the proper nutrition, to make sure that they're getting the proper conditioning, and that they don't get any of these soft tissue injuries that have held them back before.
I mean, that is going to be the thing. And they talk so much after the season about the regular season. I hesitate to say not matter. That is what Donovan kind of alluded to after the Cavs season ended prematurely. But this is all going to be about the postseason. And if Lonzo is healthy for the postseason, if Larry Nance Jr. is healthy for the postseason, the Cavs are going to feel as if they are in a better spot than they were this time last year, right? Like, they are going to have to feel better about themselves going into the postseason than they did last year, even if they felt great then.
Most definitely. And you have to. And you got a little bit more size too. I think that's another part of this. You got a little bit taller, a little bit longer. And that's always a plus when it comes to the playoffs, because we see how many people have that wingspan, or they're just built like rocks, the Aaron Nesmiths of the world, the Lou Dorts of the world. You have another offseason to get stronger too in terms of your internal roster. So it's going to be different as far as what they look like coming back in the fall. Excited to see what happens at training camp. Excited to see what happens at Summer League, and I'm sure that you'll get to that too.
Yeah, certainly excited. We will have plenty of Summer League coverage later on Locked On Cavs. Maybe not today's episode, Spencer. I'm sure you and I will do at least one podcast together in Vegas. We're both going to be out there, not for the first couple of games, but for games 3 and 4. We'll both be there watching the Cavs play, so that'll be certainly exciting. But where can everyone find your stuff?
Yeah, I'm at Spin Davies on Twitter and on Instagram. You can also find my stuff over at Cleveland Cavaliers on SI, the YouTube channel, and si.com/NBA/Cavaliers. Everybody doing a great job there. Spencer German, Anthony Meglin, Brendan Gulick running a good tight ship there. I am also over at rg.org. We have such great coverage of the NBA offseason going on over there. This is a moment where I'm going to say, act like you've been there, but I am really excited. I got my first national story broken this past week as contract details with Miles Turner and the Pacers offer. I thought that that was a really big moment for me. So a little small pat on the back. But
congratulations to you.
Thank you, sir. But that's over at rg.org. I also do NBA draft coverage for Babcock Hoops and all other sorts of outlets I work for behind the scenes. Still trying to find those ones that stick, but in a good spot, and can't wait to get out to Sin City.
It'll be a fun time. Can't wait to be there. Cannot wait to make you podcast with me about what we see from Tyrese Proctor in his summer league ventures for the Cavs. So
Jackson Robinson, baby.
Sure. We'll figure that out. But thanks so much to Spencer, and thanks so much to you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, or anywhere else. Make sure you drop us a 5-star rating, leave us a nice review, and of course, be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure a friend is subscribed as well. And if you're watching on YouTube as we get out of here, do me a favor. Hit that thumbs up button for me. Click subscribe. Hit that notification bell. We'll be back tomorrow talking more about the Cleveland Cavaliers.